Welcome everybody for joining this webinar here at the Bosch Communi. Today we actually have an external company who is supporting us with some of the Communi content, and this is the company called PAIGE Datacom. They are the supplier of a product which is called the Game Changer cable, and this is a product which we can use in Presenza context for instance, remote call stations. So as you see on the next slide, so please note that there is a recording being made of this Communi today. So afterwards you can still review it. The questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. And if you want to post any questions, please feel free to do so in the chat window, which is appearing on the right side of the user interface of the WebEx application. Okay. So as you see on the next slide, myself will be presenting today Maarten Wings, product marketing manager for the public address and voice alarm portfolio. And today I have with me David Coleman, who is vice president at Datacom, responsible for the marketing and also this product that we will be presenting today. So what do we want to explain to you today? So first of all, what is actually the Game Changer cable? How can it be applied? Understand which products are available in the portfolio, and also to understand how can this product be ordered and how is actually the support on this product given. So some topics which we will run you through today will be first some background on the company, PAIGE itself. How is PAIGE already dealing with Bosch for a longer time? What's the relation with that? Which projects did we do? Then, of course, we will look at the product details and the unique selling points that it has. And obviously, also, we would like to understand how can the product be ordered? How is the product supported in the EMEA region? So having that said, I would like to hand over to David to talk us through the presentation of the Game Changer cable. David, over to you.
Thank you so much, Martin, and thank you to everybody for joining us this afternoon. We're very excited to be connecting and engaging with your group as well after having done so in North America and kind of earned some unique and successful customers together. I'm very excited about it. PAIGE as a company has been around since 1958, and we provide wiring cable around the world for all sorts of applications. The Datacom applications that we're talking about today work in conjunction with products like yours to make buildings more intelligent, more secure, and sometimes more entertaining. So that's a little bit about kind of our history. I wanted to show you as well some information about our footprint. Most of our operations are in the North America, but we have a footprint around the world as well. What you'll see in the Netherlands is a third party, but we are working with them at times for inventorying and logistics as well. The problem that we're talking about today is a problem that all of our installers are going to face. When installing an IP device, they have this limitation of being within 100 meters from the network. And when they need to install a device that has a specific placement that's beyond that 100-meter limitation, they're forced to stop and put more time, more money, and more points of failure into their system. And this is something that we've all sort of taken for granted that it is the rule and there's nothing we can do about it until the Game Changer cable has come around. So this is the problem we're all familiar with. The solution we call the Game Changer cable. And why is that? Well, it can support up to 2.5 gigabits per second of Ethernet and power over Ethernet out to 200 meters. And if you needed to go farther than that, you could take a 10 megabit channel as far as 259 meters. And so what we've really allowed our installers to do is have the flexibility when real life gets in the way and their equipment is needed to be installed in a place that doesn't have nearby connectivity. Now, simply use the same Cat6 type of cable, but you can run it much, much farther. And we're going to see all of that and what that means to our installers in the next few slides. But you can't just take my word for it. How can we be sure that this all works, that the cable itself has been manufactured and installed to our specifications so that it can ensure successful connectivity? Well, you can use Fluke, Softing, Viavi, AEM, NetScout, Trend Networks. All of those handheld cable testers have built into them game changer settings for the cable type and for the test limits so that you can be sure that you get positive test results that don't just say, oh, we failed because of distance. We can say, ignore the distance and how do these cables actually perform. And those handheld testers will give you a pass or a fail result based on the installed quality of the cable. The other thing I wanted to mention here is down at the bottom of the screen. This cable does have 22 gauge conductors, something we'll talk about in a few minutes. But when it comes to terminating it, what does that mean? It means that if you're punching it down to a jack or any form of a patch panel that's Cat 6 certified or higher, it's going to support, as the ISO standard dictates, 22 to 26 gauge conductors. So all connectivity that's Cat 6 compliant or better works when punching it down with Game Changer. But when you're putting a mod end, an RJ45, a male plug on at the end of the cable, you want to make sure that it specifically mentions in its spec sheets that it supports 22 gauge. That is something that has many of the connectors out there do, but we want to make sure that you look specifically for that when you're making your recommendations. The other thing I wanted to mention is how PAIGE and Bosch has partnered in North America. We're very proud to be among the exclusive partners in the Technology Experience Center that Bosch built in southern United States and at Northwest Arkansas near the headquarters of Walmart. It's a beautiful experience center, and when you walk into it, among the other technologies that you'll see a wall that has the PAIGE Game Changer cable set up and a video that I'll show you towards the end of this. And it really is there because of what we've done with Walmart and the PRAESENSA systems that are being installed at stores worldwide. The problem with a big box store like Walmart is you're going to have your controls in the very back of the store, but you're going to have speakers and volume controls out throughout the store, and they're very large. And so you're going to have some of these these cable runs that are more than 100 meters, and that's where Game Changer comes in to make sure that you don't have to install additional IDFs, that you're able to run all the way from the back of the store throughout the store to your volume controls, to your speakers, etc. And when in fact, when submitted for UL life safety approval, Bosch submitted the PRAESENSA system alongside the Game Changer cable. So it's actually in the specifications as such as well. So it's a great partnership. We're very excited to be working with Bosch, both on the PRAESENSA system and also video and other types of systems that use Ethernet throughout the product portfolio. So what do those products look like in your part of the world? If you're in the EU, if you're in the UK, rather than having the UL products certification, you're using CPR for your cabling products. So indoors, we use this CCA rated cable that you see on the top of the screen. This is your indoor product. And if you're outdoors, you have one that is listed below that is intended to be used where maybe water could be present or harsher conditions from the weather may be present. This shielded outside plant cable can be used in street poles or outdoors, but when you get indoors, you move to the CCA rated product. For those who may be from the Middle East on this call, oftentimes you'll use the UL product that's made in the US. And in the United States, we have a number of different options as well. These are riser and plenum for the different sections of the indoor part of the building. The outside plant comes shielded and non-shielded. And we also see from time to time, explosion protected devices need their own connectivity in these hazardous locations. And we have cabling for that as well. I'll mention that the EU and UK product is stocked in EMEA, and we'll talk about our partners who are doing that later on. So why do people love talking about the Game Changer cable? Why do they love purchasing it and installing it and specifying it and recommending it. Well, basically, it makes you the hero of this story. A lot of times our customers find that their budget or their timeline has been put at jeopardy before completing this project, and they're looking for ways to save time and money and get back on track. And by skipping IDFs or Ethernet extenders or having to put all that extra time and infrastructure in place to support your longer cabling, you're able to then get back with those savings and with that time on budget by moving to the game changer cable. Sometimes also all those savings are great, but they're decided that they want to do that before they get started. They actually have more money in their budget as a result. And so they decide, you know what, we can spend on more hardware with greater features. In the US, we'll say more bells and whistles that allow us to maybe upgrade to a higher end camera or a higher end system from Bosch. Last, when you're talking maybe to someone who's specifying a system, you can tell them you can create an RFP for which the responses are going to be faster and less expensive. Or if you're talking to the people who are responding to an RFP, you say, hey, this by presenting with the game changer cable means less money, it means less time, it means fewer points of failure, and you're probably going to win those RFPs more often. Along the bottom of the screen, we have some awards that we've won at major trade shows, dating back as far as 2017 when this product was first introduced into the market. So I've talked about how a cable that has twice the distance can support things from twice as far away, but I like to also think about it in terms of the area that's covered. So if you look at the diagram on the left side of the screen, you'll see these red circles represent an IDF placed in the middle of a circle with a 100-meter radius. And so that 100-meter radius, if you're trying to calculate the area covered, you would take pi times the radius squared. 100 squared times pi is 31,400 square meters. And that's the size of those red circles, each of them. But when you double the size of the radius, like it is in the yellow circle, to 200 meters, the area actually quadruples. So not only is this twice the distance that you can support, but it's 4 times the area that you can support. And I think that's an important part of really understanding how much space can be covered by just a single IDF, or maybe just by fewer IDFs than a plan may originally consider, and how that really frees up more options for your customers. They take the money that they would have spent on infrastructure and they shift it to more of your products or more of the things that help your customer accomplish their objectives. A few more specifics we'll get into. This was a large car park in the United States that had 106 cameras that fell beyond the 100-meter limitation. So they looked at 3 options. Option C at the bottom was a hybrid fiber and power cable that they were able to use for delivering both the power separate from the bandwidth. To do so, they would need to go into 7 IDF locations. They'd have to have copper and fiber SFPs. There were extender modules, all sorts of hardware, and it was $126,000 before you get to labor. The option B is a little bit less expensive. That's your standard Cat 6 and PoE extenders. So there's 7 IDF locations where these extenders have 16 ports, and they go out, and at the 106 remote locations, they add additional connectivity or for the conversion back to Ethernet. And that ends up, again, being $100,000 or more. And then option A, the game changer cable, you get rid of all of that. And you just have the cable, which is more expensive per meter, but the overall savings are dramatic. And $22,000 compared to the prices that were over $100,000 is a good example of how big savings can happen in big projects. But they're not always big projects, but they can still have really meaningful savings. This airport, for example, was originally designed with fiber and media converters, and that product was failing, especially in the heat. They'd go out and it was a maintenance nightmare is what the the installer said. And so by switching those channels to game changer cable, it eliminated all of their maintenance problems, and it became the basis of design for that airport with all of their long distance connectivity needs. At this point, I like to preempt some of the frequently asked questions that are going to come in, but please, if you're thinking about questions that I don't get to in these next few slides, add them to the chat. We'd be happy to get to them. So what's the maximum distance the game changer cable can run? It really depends on how much bandwidth you need. If you only need 10 megs, you can go out to 259 meters. If you needed more bandwidth than that, you can get up to multi-gig support even at the 200-meter length. On the right side of the screen, you're going to see a 200-meter channel that was passed and certified on a Fluke network tester. If you're going beyond that 200 meters where all you want is 10 megs, I will mention a good tip for reliability is to set that channel, that port on that switch, to a speed of 10 megabits per second. This will force a reliable connection and override any auto negotiate. That's an important tip, but it's only necessary on those long distance 10 megabit runs. Another question we get regularly is, can the game changer work for more than just video? And the answer is yes. So all Ethernet traffic is going to be treated the same, whether it's video or voice or data. It's going to be connected and used just like a Cat 6 would be. One of the last questions we get about how this all works is, what's the magic behind Game Changer? And we have 4 patents on these 3 things that I'm going to explain. The first is the gauge size. So we've added 30% more copper than a standard Cat 6. And then the next is, okay, you've got more copper. That means the signal can go farther, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the signal's in good shape by the time it gets to the end of that distance. So we had to optimize the way that it was twisted. And we had to do that for specific electrical characteristics like insertion loss and delay skew to ensure that the Ethernet protocol was, as robust as it is, able to work at these longer distances. And then we had to put in some higher end materials to play, because to get it back into a 22 gauge footprint, it was important. Higher end specialty materials allow us to use ultimately the same types of connectivity in the 22 gauge Cat 6 that you would normally see. So it had to fit into that footprint so it was easy to use. And these 3 things come together to allow the Game Changer to perform the way that it does. That plus a little magic, of course, right? So who's having success with the Game Changer today? In the EMEA market, Game Changer has been out for a little while already and has some modest success. Most of our success has been in the North American market. Worldwide, we've sold over 10 million meters of Game Changer cable to the largest integrators and end users in the world. And if there is a particular type of customer that you are working with and they say, we'd like to talk to somebody who's done this before that's like us, maybe because they are an airport or a train station or a financial institution or a amusement park or a shopping mall or whatever it might be. We have someone that they could talk to who's gone through the same types of evaluations, who's had the product installed, and would be happy to explain what it was that made them choose Game Changer and how happy they've been with the product since. So if you need those types of references, please let us know. We're happy to help. And where can it be purchased? ADI, Anixter, and Wesco are all partners of ours in the EMEA market, as well as in other parts of the world. They're just getting started, though. Wesco has been on board with us for a few years. Anixter and ADI are just getting started with this now. In fact, I just signed our contract with ADI Monday of this week. So we are very excited, and everyone's getting trained up and will be able to support our customers with Game Changer needs as you direct them in to those distributors. At this point, I'd like to introduce Joe Mislevy, who is our Director of Business Development and one of the people that you can contact. I'm going to leave this slide up for a little bit longer than some of the other slides so that you can take in some of the information that's here. Our website paigedatacom.com/gamechanger is a great resource to find spec sheets and flyers and case studies and all that types of stuff. It also has a live chat feature in the bottom right corner. You can pop that open and chat either with a bot or with a live person to get some of your questions. I would also point you to the top right corner where you see this email address, cgorders@paigeconnected.com. That will go to my entire sales enablement team, and someone will be able to get back to you quickly with any of the questions that you may have. If you want to be interacting directly with Joe or with myself, our phone numbers, if you want to hit us up on WhatsApp, or our email addresses are also listed here as well. And Joe, if you could come off of mute and say hello to introduce yourself, that'd be great. And maybe because we're in a webinar session, coming off of mute is not something he can do. So I will just say hello from Joe. and again, remind you that both Joe and I are available as your support for any of the questions before, during, or after a sale. We're here to help you out.
Okay, David, thank you very much. This was your last slide, right, Joe? We come to the questions. Maybe before we
dive,
dive...
video to share, but we can do the questions before or after the video, however you like, Martin.
No, let's do the video first then. Yeah.
Okay, great. Can you see my screen, Martin?
Yes, I do.
All right, the video will begin in just a moment. Welcome to the Bosch Experience Center, and thanks for taking a minute to learn about Game Changer Cable, the best way to make sure that your low voltage infrastructure can go twice as far as normal and hook up awesome IP devices like this speaker. As a quick reminder, this is the video that plays in the United States at the Bosch Experience Center. So some of the stuff that you'll see in this video is geared to the American market. When you need to add IP devices more than 100 meters away from your network, you're forced to include extra time, money, and points of failure into your system, right? Actually, not anymore. The patented Game Changer cable from PAIGE is the first and only cable ever verified by UL to deliver 1 gigabit performance and any form of PoE out to 200 meters. That's 656 feet. And if you need to go farther than that, you can take a 10 meg channel out to 850 feet. That's why we call it the Game Changer. Simplify your job by getting rid of all the unnecessary points of failure and go the distance with Game Changer. Go 656 feet with a gigabit. Or if you need to go farther, take a 10 megabit channel up to 850 feet and certify those long distance runs with your Fluke or other handheld testing device. At this point, you may be wondering what's the difference between the Game Changer cable and a standard Cat6? Well, there's 3 things that we've done to the patented Game Changer cable that make that design special and able to go the distance. The first is the gauge size. We're using 22 gauge conductors, which means there's 20% more copper in a Game Changer cable than in a standard Cat6. The second thing that we did is with the twists. We've optimized for greater distance support, when normally you have to optimize for greater frequency support and greater bandwidth support. In this case, we optimize for the things that fail over long distances. The last thing that we've done is use higher end materials. When the Game Changer first came out, it was a 20 gauge product that was a little difficult to work with. By upgrading to some higher end materials, we were able to get it back into the 22 gauge footprint and make it easier to use. Whether your application is indoors, outdoors, or even in a hazardous location, we've got a Game Changer cable that's right for your job. So as you walk around the rest of the Technology Center today, don't worry about where you're going to have to put an IDF or how you may put that speaker at the far end of your building. With Game Changer, we've got you covered.
Okay, thank you very much, David, for this complimentary video. I think it makes it very clear. Yeah, I just want to say from my side before we jump into any questions that the Game Changer cable was tested by engineering here in Eindhoven. We looked into some of the different models that they have. Actually, the difference in the model is only the cable jack, if I'm not mistaken, David, right? So the technology itself, how the cores of the cable are twisted, and the amount of copper which is in the cable itself, that's the same for all the different models. And as David presented, there are a few models applicable for the EMEA region and those regions who are actually able to use UL certified equipment. like the Middle East territory, they are able to take whatever they have on offer. So it will be more models. Good. Thank you very much, and hope to see you next time on the Communi.